things, and we make you feel like, it's not all bad.
People say to me, you always seem to be having a good time. And you know what? You're right.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7.
Are you confident that there will be a peaceful transfer of power?
President Biden's first interview since his historic announcement on CBS.
Active retirees in every local union in the state of Michigan overwhelmingly, unanimously support the Harris-Walz campaign.
I don't think unions should jump on board with any candidate.
What we will do is continue to expose those countries that attempt to interfere in our elections, and we will hold them accountable for those actions.
Our opponents are desperate to shift the focus here from the substantive issues and focus on what you are concerned with to salacious tabloid trash. We cannot allow that to happen.
Hello, I'm Robert Costa in Washington. Welcome to America Decides. Former President Donald Trump is in Washington tonight after last night's rally on New York's Long Island. He's taking part in a Fighting Anti-Semitism in America event and addressing the Israeli-American Council's National Summit. Vice President Kamala Harris campaigning in Detroit with Oprah Winfrey for a Unite for America live streaming rally. And with just 47 days to go until Election Day, a new poll from the New York Times has the candidates tied in a nationwide survey of likely voters. Joining us now, Torian Small and Caitlin Huey-Burns. Great to have you both here. Let's begin, Torian, with this controversy in North Carolina. There's a fallout over a CNN report. Mark Robinson, the lieutenant governor of the state, facing allegations of misconduct on an adult website. How is this playing out in your latest reporting?
Yeah, no response yet from the Trump-Vance campaign on this reporting, but sources within the GOP tell me that this is obviously devastating. I've been reaching out to sources all day just to get their reaction to this, and this is something that could pretty much impact the fate of this race. This is a must-win state for the Trump campaign. This is a very significant race at the top of the ticket, obviously, after the presidential race. But the allegations or the things that were unearthed in these forum posts is definitely damaging to Mark Robinson. We did see a response from North Carolina's Democratic Party. The chairperson there said that this is not a surprise to voters. She said Mark Robinson has showed who he was before, and this is just another example of that.
Caitlin, this is a breaking story. We're still doing our reporting here at CBS News about these allegations against Mark Robinson running for governor, as Torian said, in North Carolina, such a crucial state. He has been backed repeatedly by former President Donald Trump, the Republican nominee. Let's listen to what Trump has had to say in the past about Robinson.
This is Martin Luther King on steroids, okay? Now, I told that to Mark. I said, I think you're better than Martin Luther King. I think you are Martin Luther King times 2.
Caitlin, we know we're still trying to figure out exactly what we know, but we do know that CNN is reporting that Mark Robinson made incendiary comments, allegedly, on an adult website about race, about sex, about politics, and about myriad other topics. What are you hearing among your sources about this unfolding story?
Well, Bob, about a month ago, I was covering a Trump rally in Asheville, North Carolina, and one of the speakers that was in line to introduce Donald Trump was Mark Robinson. And out of all of the speakers that were there that day, he got the biggest applause from the crowd, with the exception of that for Donald Trump. More excitement for him than there was for the sitting senator there, Ted Budd. So that just goes to show that the kind of Trump base has been really revved up by and for Robinson, at least in that setting. He has campaigned for Donald Trump. He has appeared with Donald Trump, but they haven't been kind of polling at the same level. North Carolina is a battleground state this time around. Republicans have been winning it for a while now, and Democrats have seen it as a key battleground. But Donald Trump has been running ahead of Robinson in the polls. Robinson has been behind Josh Stein, the Democratic candidate there. So Robinson was really hoping for coattails from Donald Trump in that state, instead of the other way around.
Caitlin, let's stick with you. You've been reporting on labor and the battle for the union vote in Michigan. You've spoken with the Teamsters, who have not issued an endorsement this time around in the presidential race. Let's listen to one of your conversations with a Teamster member.
I'm a little bit shocked, but our general president has his view. I have no right to challenge his view. He was elected by the body, and that is his job. I was elected by the body in the state of Michigan to do my job.
So, Caitlin, give us a little bit of the backstory here to what's going on with the Teamsters. You have a rank and file member there talking about Sean O'Brien, the Teamsters leader. There's not a national endorsement from the Teamsters, who often do back the Democrats. Is this a win for the Trump campaign, or how are the Democrats reacting to this, and how are Republicans in Michigan reacting?
Yeah, Bob, we've been on the ground in Michigan all week covering Trump and Harris coming here later today. And yesterday we were at a local Teamsters office as that announcement was coming down that the national Teamsters were not going to endorse a candidate this time around, even though their own internal polling that they showed that their members favored Trump over Harris. But we were with a local leader here who is kind of on the board of all of the Teamsters here in Michigan, and he was adamant about supporting Kamala Harris and getting all of his members to do the same. And in fact, while we were there, they sent out an endorsement of Harris. So his argument, the person that we heard from there, Kevin Moore, said that, the national leadership is one thing, but what will really make the difference in key battlegrounds like Michigan is the local level. And so you saw an array of local Teamsters come out and endorse Harris. But, covering Trump as well, he does have union support here, and that is kind of the key constituency here in Michigan and in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, these 3 states that will help determine who wins the presidency. The union vote is key, and both campaigns are fighting for those votes. The UAW, United Auto Workers Union, endorsed Harris, but we talked to a member the other day at a Trump rally here in Michigan, who said that he was supporting Trump because he's concerned about his job being sent overseas. And so, you kind of have this divide sometimes between the party, the union leadership and the rank and file. But in terms of mobilization on the ground, those kinds of local endorsements, local support could really make the difference in a state like Michigan, which, was decided by about 150,000 votes last time.
Torian, you've spent a lot of time covering the vice presidential side of this presidential race. Senator Vance comes from Ohio, has working roots. You have Tim Walz from Minnesota, a populist Democrat in the eyes of his allies. How are these battles for the labor vote playing out on the vice presidential side of this race?
Well, what's interesting, when this no endorsement came out, it was right after Senator Vance took the stage. He didn't take questions about it after, but his campaign, though, was pretty celebratory about the news. Look, the Trump-Vance campaign says no endorsement is essentially an endorsement for them. This would be the first time in 30 years they didn't back a Democrat. And they're definitely, talking about how rank-and-file members have broken away from where those union leaders stand. I remember covering a Trump event where he brought up this union worker, and he pretty much said the same thing, that his members, despite what the union leaders are saying, are firmly behind Donald Trump. They're looking to draw daylight between the future of where the Republican Party is going and the future where the Democratic Party is going. And by contrasting the history of support from these union leaders or from these union groups around Democrats to now is how they're looking to do that.
And real quickly, Oprah Winfrey's going to be back on the campaign trail tonight with Vice President Harris in a capacity. Let's look at what Tony DeCopel had to say to her at the Democratic convention.
Why was it so important to risk that reputation, all of that trust, all of that capital for this moment?
Because I really care about this country. And there couldn't have been a life like mine, a career like mine, a success like mine without a country like America.
And Caitlin, very quickly, what do you expect to hear from Oprah Winfrey tonight?
Yeah, she's hosting a live stream event. There will be a live audience there. And the Harris campaign is really hoping that Winfrey, who has beamed into living rooms across the country for years and years and years, can kind of get those same people to leave their houses, get engaged in the election, and turn out to vote, those persuadable voters in states like Michigan and beyond.
The Oprah effect. We'll see if it has one in Michigan and elsewhere. Torian Small, Caitlin Huey-Burns, thank you so much for your reporting. And a quick programming note. Join us early on October 1st at 4 p.m. Eastern for a special vice presidential debate edition of America Decides live from the Big Apple, New York City. CBS News will moderate the debate and bring you coverage all evening long. Meanwhile, an Alaska man who threatened to assassinate 6 members of the Supreme Court has been arrested. The Justice Department says the man allegedly sent more than 465 messages through the Supreme Court's public website, many of them violent, racist. The indictment did not say who on the high court might have been targeted, but he faces 9 counts of making threats against a federal judge and additional charges. He has pleaded not guilty.
Those are not the words of Mark Robinson. You know my words. You know my character.
We talked a little bit about that breaking news. North Carolina gubernatorial candidate Republican Mark Robinson responding to allegations of disturbing comments. Inside that latest reporting and the fallout, you're streaming America Decides.
Okay, so let's just start at the beginning.
Well, let me start with this. What is at stake here? What is the answer then?
Do you know why?
You want me to just keep going?
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Were there death threats?
How is this possible?
What's wrong with that argument?
Are you saying they lied?
Have you told the government that? Why won't you say the word crisis?
You're not answering my question.
This really
Is that scary?
Does that make sense?
What do you mean?
What does that mean in
Did any of that make sense?
Have you What's your response?
What happened?
Why?
It's time for the CBS News Original 60 Minutes, Sunday on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
There is no more room in our city.
New York City is receiving record numbers of migrants.
Today, we're going to have more than 500 adults and children come through that door.
Tensions rise as shelters reach max capacity.
We don't have to take care of them.
CBS Reports goes inside a crisis cities and families are facing as they fight to survive.
The United States still has a glimmer of hope for people to come here.
Fighting for a future. Now streaming on the free CBS News app. An original documentary from CBS Reports.
Since you started La Soup in 2014, do you have any sense as to how much food you've rescued from the landfill?
We've rescued 4.5 million pounds.
I can't even fathom how much food that is.
And that's one little person in one little city in America. We're going to call this chicken piccata. We did 450 of these meals today.
This is the exact dish that you and I are going to have.
Yep.
Oh, really good.
Is it good?
Mm-hmm.
Having a plan of how to keep people fed should be in every single city.
So if we eliminated food waste, could we eliminate
hunger? Yes.
Eating Trash, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
America Decides is your place for fact-based, unbiased reporting.
At the White House, at the Capitol, on the campaign trail. What do you say to those in your party?
Any cracks in the Republican Party?
Our reporters and our anchors travel the country talking to voters like you
About the issues that matter most.
Immigration is really a factor right now.
That are going to be driving your decisions.
What would you say to those who say, look, that's just democracy at work?
Listening to you and bringing your voice into our coverage.
I want a strong, proud America.
Is democracy on the ballot in 2024?
Let us help you decide.
America Decides on CBS News 24/7.
Stream our expanded 1-hour program Monday through Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern.
When people say who's first to get in the morning, that would be me. Morning news matters because it sets the tone for your day, and it's a way of getting you started.
Day to day, that first draft of history, it happens right here. We're going to uplift you. We're going to send you out your way. We take you places. We teach you new things. And we make you feel like, it's not all bad.
People say to me, you always seem to be having a good time. And you know what? You're right.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7.
That I have been completely transparent in this race and before. Clarence Thomas famously once said he was the victim of a high-tech lynching. Well, it looks like Mark Robinson is too.
This story is moving fast. We talked about it at the top of the show. That was Republican nominee for North Carolina's gubernatorial position, Mark Robinson, trying to get out ahead of this bombshell CNN report. Among the findings from that network, that he made a series of comments allegedly on an adult website more than a decade ago. The alleged comments were explosive on politics, sex, race. Let's bring in Donna King for more. She's the editor-in-chief for the Carolina Journal. Thanks for being with us. So you're down there in North Carolina following this story. How big is it politically, and what matters here?
Absolutely. It is a huge story. One of the things that really set Mark Robinson apart from the very beginning of his political career, which was only, 2017, 2018, is that he gave voice to a lot of really frustrated Republicans in North Carolina. North Carolina is a purple state, but in reality, it's very, very red and very, very blue in the urban areas. So he really hit a nerve with Republicans in North Carolina. He speaks often of his faith, of his family values, of those things. And so this really becomes a huge story because literally today is the deadline, as far as we can tell, for the State Board of Elections to accept if he were to decide to withdraw. But clearly, Mark Robinson has said he is in it for the long haul.
What do you make of his response so far, having covered him?
Sure. Well, we've covered him for a long time since he first emerged on our political scene here in North Carolina. I think that the response, the video that we've seen come out this afternoon, is pretty consistent with the approach he's taken to a lot of what's turned into scandals coming out over the last few months. It seems like death by 1,000 cuts. There seems to be a new thing brewing every few weeks. He's, of course, saying that this is a plant by his opponent, our Attorney General Josh Stein. But I think that what we're seeing now is pretty consistent with the persona that he's put forward in this campaign throughout.
Is there any pressure at this moment from North Carolina Republicans, different lawmakers in the state?
We're hearing an undercurrent of pressure even within his own party to step aside at this point. But we've really only had one group come out publicly and call for that. So I do think that this is still happening. It seems to be changing by the hour, really, and it's happening behind the scenes a lot. The question, though, is what would happen if he were to step out? North Carolina's absentee ballots, military overseas ballots, they all go in the mail on Friday.
Walk us through the gubernatorial race as it stands. I know this is a fluid situation, but what do you know?
Absolutely. Well, Carolina Journal, we have some really up-to-the-minute polling. It was in the field Sunday and on Monday, which would have been after the incident in Florida at the Trump International Golf Course. Our polling results show Josh Stein, the Democrat nominee, the Attorney General of North Carolina, at 45.5% right now, and Mark Robinson at 39.2%. So that's a pretty significant lead for the Democrat candidate in this. It really feels like Mark Robinson hits the ceiling somewhere around 40% and has a really hard time busting through that ceiling in our polling numbers, whereas Josh Stein seems to be, chugging along and gradually building support throughout this process.
What about on the presidential level? Is Vice President Harris or former President Trump positioned to win the state at this point?
North Carolina is I would call firmly in sort of a toss-up. They are neck and neck. Former President Donald Trump right now is leading Harris by less than a percentage point. So it really is a neck and neck race. But, President Trump is very, very popular with the base here in North Carolina. And I think that we have found in our past polling in 2020, 2016, that we have what we call a shy Trump voter. They tend not to answer those polls and tend to sometimes not even be truthful when they do. So we have found that lots of pollsters account for that now in their methodology. We're really curious to see what happens in this go round.
Donna King, thank you for stopping by. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Coming up next, Iran trying to interfere in American elections. What the FBI says was sent to President Biden's campaign before he dropped out. You're streaming America Decides.
Go to the ends of the earth.
Right now.
We got something crazy. and reach for the stars.
Here we are. Time.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun. But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking,
Welcome to the idea of being a human being.
innovative, and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
At this moment, terrorists could be plotting another attack.
9/11 triggered a counter-terrorist system that included a secret database.
This person needs a closer look.
A growing list of nearly 2 million people, including some Americans who say they're innocent.
For 1 hour flight, I have to spend 6 hours to go and come back.
CBS Reports explores the system, the people responsible for it, and those pushing for change.
I'm not fighting against them. I'm fighting for them to do the right thing.
The Watch List, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Don't miss true crime anytime you want, anywhere you go. With the 48 Hours podcast. Real crimes, real lives, real justice.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Listen to 48 Hours on Apple Podcasts.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
Imagine yourself in Manhattan with no police, no army, no mayor.
The people of Haiti stare down poverty, corruption, natural disasters, and violence.
90% of the guns that are used by gangs in Haiti are American guns.
But with an unbreakable spirit and eternal optimism.
There are days where I cry, but we can't be discouraged. We still believe in Haiti.
They're still able to look ahead with hope.
Haiti is on the brink of transformation, a radical shift. Nations are coming together and saying things must change.
Fighting for Haiti, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Hey there, welcome to The Uplift.
I thought she was a groom, and I stepped back and I went, oh, you're the queen. She's gonna be with me every instant that I'm alive.
I just wanted to see if you'd go to Disneyland with me today.
I look over at him and he's smiling.
I'm gonna remember that the rest of my life.
They told us when he was gonna be born, he was only gonna live for 30 minutes. It's really a miracle that he's with us today.
The Uplift, stream now on the free CBS News app.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
On our places, bright, shiny faces.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my two good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings.
A CBS News investigation. People looking for love, finding their life savings gone.
This could happen to anybody.
And sometimes losing their lives. Anything for love. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Federal officials are accusing Iranian hackers of sending information stolen from the Trump campaign to the Biden campaign in an effort to interfere with the 2024 election. So the FBI now and other federal agencies claim unsolicited emails were sent to people associated with the president's campaign back in June and July. That's, of course, before President Biden dropped out. Officials say there is no evidence of any recipients responding to this information, but an Iranian official now in a statement says the allegations are, quote, fundamentally unfounded and wholly inadmissible. So what's the truth here? What's the reality? Our own Nicole Skanga has more for us. Nicole, great to have you here. It's significant for the intelligence community to speak so publicly about this kind of interference. What is being confirmed by the U.S. government publicly, and what are you also learning from your sources about the scope of this enterprise?
This is an Iranian bait-and-switch hack-and-leak campaign, Robert, and as you noted, it is fascinating that the intelligence community, the FBI, the nation's top cybersecurity agency, CISA, are all running to say the quiet part out loud here, which is that Iranian cyber operatives used excerpts of what they call stolen non-public material from Trump-affiliated persons to try to lure Biden campaign associates to essentially click on a phishing link. And the Biden campaign even saying in a statement that those close to the campaign thought these were scammer emails. Now, this is new information about Tehran's efforts to weaken former President Donald Trump's campaign, one that the ODNI, FBI, and DHS have been quick to call out is associated with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. The investigation began back in June when tech companies, notably Microsoft and Google, alerted the FBI about a mysterious AOL user named Robert that began shopping around what looked like a research dossier. And it was at that time that the Trump campaign called this out, as well as other media organizations who were reached out to, like Politico. But zooming out beyond just this hack and leak campaign, we also know that Iran is conducting covert social media operations, that they are pushing AI-pumped fake personas, phony news articles online aimed at sowing political divisions, undermining trust in the U.S. elections, and all of this trying to denigrate the former president's campaign.
Iran denies this. Our government is stating this as fact. Is it just from intelligence gathering? The United States has been able to confirm that they believe this is Iran for sure?
Yeah, and the FBI was alerted to this back in June and has had now weeks to investigate this in particular. And I do want to point out, this is a fascinating moment in cyber altogether. We use the word unprecedented a lot on this show, but this time, you know, it really merits it. And Brad Smith, the president of Microsoft, appeared before the Senate Intelligence Committee just yesterday. He said there's a potential moment of peril ahead, alluding to Election Day. He called threats to our democracy sophisticated and persistent. And he went on to paint this sort of interesting geopolitical cyber landscape where you have Iranian operatives targeting both candidates but denigrating Trump, Russian operatives preferring the Trump campaign, denigrating the Harris-Walz campaign and then the Biden campaign, and Chinese operatives who are collecting intelligence and really just hoping to sow general chaos. On the very same day as this announcement and this hearing took place, FBI Director Wray coming out and calling out China, saying the FBI has taken down another Chinese botnet, this one called Flax Typhoon, that targeted and compromised hundreds of thousands of internet-linked devices, cameras, video recorders worldwide. One of the largest targets here, U.S. critical infrastructure. And so for cyber defenders, yes, this really is an unprecedented moment and one we will be following up to Election Day.
Cole Skanga, thank you so much for your in-depth reporting. We appreciate it very much. Now to the war in the Middle East, where Israel's military hit several Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. The airstrikes are the latest escalation between the IDF and Hezbollah. The militant group leader is blaming Israel for the coordinated device explosions that injured thousands and called it, quote, a declaration of war. Our Chris Livesay is in Israel with the latest.
Well, the Israeli defense minister said today the center of gravity is shifting to the north, that is, away from Hamas in Gaza and towards Hezbollah in Lebanon. And here's some reasons why. In Metula, that's Israel's northernmost village, homes are ablaze after Hezbollah began bombarding it with rockets. And not far away, 2 Israeli soldiers were killed. The same evening, Israel says it struck dozens of Hezbollah targets, including rocket launchers and weapons depots. Remember, Hezbollah began attacking northern Israel the day after the October 7 massacre carried out by Hamas in solidarity. Both groups are backed by Iran. And since then, tens of thousands of Israelis have been displaced from their homes amid the fierce exchange of fire. And just this week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said securing this area is now one of the country's official war aims. Now, so far, we haven't seen the same kind of mobilization we witnessed in the run-up to the invasion of Gaza. No tanks or armored personnel carriers lining the highways. But keep in mind, Israel was taken completely by surprise when Hamas attacked nearly a year ago, whereas here in the north, it's already been bracing for war with Hezbollah for years. Chris Livesay, CBS News, Haifa, Israel.
A new poll is giving Vice President Kamala Harris the edge in a key battleground state. Our political panel, it's a great one. We'll dig into those numbers coming up next. You're streaming America Decides.
Washington is the seat of power. National security, foreign policy, global economics, every story comes through Washington in some way. We bring some of the most powerful voices in America to the table. We don't just ask the questions, you have to go deeper. We try to understand what's at the heart of the issue we're talking about, to then come forward with solutions.
Face the Nation on CBS.
The justices ruled that Harvard and the University of North Carolina violated the Constitution.
In the aftermath of the Supreme Court decision to end affirmative action in college admissions, uncertainty sets in for some students of color.
Affirmative action really gave us an equal opportunity.
CBS Reports explores the historic decision and what it means for those chasing an opportunity to change their lives.
I knew that college was the ticket to break this cycle.
The end of affirmative action, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
America Decides is your place for fact-based, unbiased reporting.
At the White House, at the Capitol, on the campaign trail. What do you say to those in your party?
Any cracks in the Republican Party?
Our reporters and our anchors travel the country talking to voters like you
about the issues that matter most.
Immigration is really a factor right now
that are going to be driving your decisions.
What would you say to those who say, look, that's just democracy at work?
Listening to you and bringing your voice into our coverage.
I want a strong, proud America.
Is democracy on the ballot in 2024?
Let us help you decide.
America Decides on CBS News 24/7.
Stream our expanded one-hour program Monday through Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
AI is among the most world-changing technologies ever.
Curing diseases, scientific breakthroughs, making lives better.
They can help us with medical discoveries, scientific discoveries, doing better agriculture, having cures for things like Alzheimer's.
It's also going to really transform the way we work.
The uplifting potential of artificial intelligence is limitless.
It gives you a friend, somebody to chat with 24/7 that is non-judgmental. He makes me feel loved and desired.
And so are its downfalls.
The problem with all this AI is that it's unpredictable and uncontrollable. The choices we make now will have lasting effects for decades, maybe even centuries.
The ChatGPT revolution, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
We are about to see American weapons in the hands of Mexican cartels.
A gun pipeline to Mexico.
We are arming the cartels.
100%, no doubt about it.
Happening right under our noses.
Who's doing something about this? Nobody.
A CBS Reports exclusive.
Most Americans have no idea that we are effectively arming the enemy next door.
This is the story the American people need to know.
Arming cartels, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
There are new polls out showing Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump deadlocked nationally. But the vice president now, it seems, has an edge in what is arguably the most closely watched battleground state. Polling from the New York Times, Philly Inquirer, and Siena College released today indicate Harris and Trump have each won the support of 47% of all likely voters. But in Pennsylvania, my home state, the Democratic presidential nominee leading her Republican rival by 4 points. Kadia Goba and Finn Gomez join us now. Kadia is a politics reporter for Semaphore. Finn is our CBS News political director. Great to have you both here. I want to begin with you, Kadia. You just sat down with former Speaker Nancy Pelosi for a Semaphore event yesterday here in Washington, D.C. I'm sure, like most times, you have a conversation with the former Speaker. I'm sure it was a low-key, very muted affair.
No news.
I'm sure she had some sharp comments about the race. I mean, many Democrats tell me, and she would deny it, that she's effectively one of the key leaders of the Democratic Party, even though she's out of power. She has political capital. What did she have to say about where things stand?
Well, she just, doubled down and reiterated the talking points of Democrats.
And what was your real read on it?
That she wants them to win. I thought it was shocking that she said she thought the Senate is going to remain stay with Democrats, which is not what most people aren't saying. So she kind of pushed back against that. That was interesting. She said, asked her about whether she was convinced by Kamala Harris's, all this attention towards Kamala Harris, and did that change her mind about the open primary she had initially suggested? And she kind of said, well, there was an open primary. Right.
Did she talk about who she would have backed if there was an open primary post-Biden exit?
No, she kind of just said, she's a astute candidate. She talked about Kamala Harris being an astute candidate, and she's there for a reason because, some people backed out, and she just kind of went on and said that she had earned the position as the Democratic nominee.
She's known Vice President Harris for years. I mean, the San Francisco Democrats have a huge influence on this party.
Yeah, well, I asked her how tight they were. I asked her if she would say she had, if she would call her close, and she kind of pivoted to the audience, well, I'm about as close as I am to all of you. So I don't know what that says about their relationship.
Did she have anything to say about President Biden? Because President Biden, when I sat down with him back earlier in the summer, he mentioned her name. I didn't mention her name, but he mentioned her name. And as one of the Democrats who raised concerns, did she talk about him at all?
No, she didn't. A lot of her focus was on Mitch McConnell, who she is, wholeheartedly blaming for January 6th not going the way, or the impeachment process not going the way it should have, or the way she would have liked to. And she kind of said she felt sorry for him, but that's the only senator she really talked in large about.
It's interesting to begin this conversation talking about your conversation with Speaker Pelosi, because she is someone who has such power within the Democratic Party. Even though she's not the speaker anymore, she influences almost everything, donors, Congress. And she's pretty curt sometimes when it comes to talking about Vice President Harris. Vice President Harris and her allies are very happy about these poll numbers we just discussed.
Right.
But to build on Khadia's reporting and conversation with Speaker Pelosi, Finn, what are you hearing candidly from Democrats about how they actually assess this race beyond the polls that we see? She's up incrementally in some of these battlegrounds. So how do they believe she's doing post-debate? Is this a campaign in the eyes of top Democrats you talk to all the time that's truly ascendant, or is this race still very narrow?
Bob, I would say there are two key words that I look to, I think, especially at this point in the race when we are 47 days out from Election Day, and that is data and vibes, right? And right now, the vibe that I'm getting from those close to the Harris campaign and those in the Harris campaign, I would say, is there's no sense of overconfidence here. They know how hard it is where they are, where they're positioned right now at this point in the race with what they're looking at. And they're looking at some tough races in those 7 key battleground states, including the Keystone State, as we saw, but also North Carolina, Georgia. There's just such crucial races, so crucial to both their campaign and also the Trump campaign strategy, the 270, that Sunbelt strategy. I would also say there is a sense there's a sense like, we're in football season, there's a sense of like prevent defense, right? They don't want to get scored on. No unnecessary mistakes. They want to continue like getting those incremental gains, 5 runs to the first down, but they are playing it safe.
And Jonathan Martin had a fascinating article in Politico where he talked about how if Vice President Harris doesn't win Pennsylvania, she effectively has to win either North Carolina or Georgia.
Right.
She has to expand the map. Is that how they see it inside the Harris campaign?
Yes, and they know the significance of it. I mean, that's why she's going back tomorrow to Georgia. They see an opportunity on abortion rights to gain some, to make some political gains there. They know that's a big issue for them to amplify their vote. They are seeing also, and we've talked about it on the show, you talked about it on the show with Tom Bonnier, that we've seen an increase in registration among young women of color in these crucial states, in Georgia, in Pennsylvania. And look, we all know they all know the warnings of the 2016 cycle also, right? There was one poll around this time, ABC had a poll that showed Hillary up 12 points, and we all know how that resulted. So they're not taking anything for granted.
There's a possible government shutdown on the horizon. Semaphore has been doing a lot of coverage of that. Does it have a political impact at all, or is it just more of a Washington story based on your conversations with lawmakers?
I think it's a Washington story, to be honest with you. If you think Republicans are going to shut the government down during a presidential election...
I don't rule anything out, Khadia.
I just don't think it's going to happen. Yes, I was surprised that Speaker Johnson put the SAVE Act, or it's an election bill, on the floor again, but it just doesn't make sense that they would want to shut the government down during a period like this. I think he's going to be able to lean on Democrats like he has in the past to get it across the line. Speaker Johnson and the moderate Republicans who know they will lose their race if there's a shutdown.
Yet we've heard from both former President Trump and Senator Vance essentially saying that they should leverage that potential with Democrats on the Hill. The SAVE Act, by the way, I mean that's a premise that is purely political, and they know that. There's a strategic element there they know because the data doesn't support the premise.
And we're continuing to cover this North Carolina story. Mark Robinson, we talked to a reporter from North Carolina. We talked to our reporters earlier about this unfolding story. Mark Robinson, he hasn't had an easy race so far. he's being defiant. Do you expect the Trump campaign and the former president to stand by him?
I don't think they're going to say anything about this, to be honest with you.
What do you mean? Just be muted? Just
I think they're
silent?
going to be muted about it.
That's a statement in and of itself.
That it is, just like the Teamsters not, backing Harris right now.
They're going to pull a Teamsters move, no endorsement, no denial.
I don't think they're going to say anything about it. And, I mean, right now he's not leading. He's in a losing position anyway. This does not... I mean, why would you comment on something like that?
Well, Trump's supposedly going to be going to North Carolina sometime in the coming weeks.
On Saturday in Wilmington, North Carolina. It'd be interesting. I don't think we're going to see Robinson there. I did talk to a source close to the campaign who tells me there's some reporting out there that the Trump campaign, they've been the force behind pushing him off the ballot. They insist it's, the source close to the campaign says they do not believe it's not the campaign, that there's any push. It's coming from
it would have to happen
RGA,
soon,
but it's
based
coming
on
from
that
the RGA. By tonight, by midnight tonight.
Who would it be if the Trump campaign or the top Republicans had a candidate to jump in? Who would it be?
For many Republicans that I spoke to today after this news unfolded, anyone. Any other Republican. If you have an R behind your name, that's who they want.
It's like when you look in the phone book and pick out anybody?
Hey, they might have better chances right now with 47 days out than the current candidate.
But Robinson, he's a lot like a lot of candidates who face scrutiny about their personal conduct. Fight, fight, fight.
Except North Carolina is in play right now, and there's a very big opportunity for Trump to wash. This could be a wash for him if he lets. If this gets out of hand. Both candidates are like playing for North Carolina, so I don't think that they will put anything up for chance.
We'll see what happens. Fin Gomez, Kadia Goba, thank you for stopping by. We really appreciate it. Across the country, Republican lawmakers in Nebraska now calling on their state to change its electoral system for presidential races. The group of lawmakers over there urging Nebraska's governor and the legislature to make the state winner take all. Nebraska, as you know, has 5 electoral votes, but unlike most states, it splits its votes, giving 2 to the winner of the popular vote and the others to the winner of the popular vote in those 3 respective congressional districts in the state. The change would almost certainly give former President Trump an extra electoral vote, if polling's right, in what's expected to be a tight presidential race. And here in Washington, the 3 black women behind NASA's Hidden Figures, great film, were honored with congressional gold medals on Capitol Hill Wednesday. Speaker Johnson presented the award to the families of Katherine Johnson, Dorothy Vaughan, and Mary Jackson. A 4th woman, Christine Darden, was honored for her work as an engineer working on space issues. Their work helped to get the first American astronaut to orbit the Earth. Another medal was symbolically presented to all of those whose contributions to NASA might have went unrecognized during that period of racism and segregation back in the 1950s and 60s, where it was unrecognized. No longer Hidden Figures, now congressional gold medal winners. Meanwhile, as early voting gets set to begin, what's being done to protect your vote? We'll speak to the head of the U.S. Election Assistance Committee. You're streaming America Decides.
Go to the ends of the earth.
Right now.
We got something crazy. And reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Time.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun.
But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking.
I'm open to the idea of being a human being.
Innovative and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
At this moment, terrorists could be plotting another attack.
9/11 triggered a counter-terrorist system that included a secret database.
This person needs a closer look.
A growing list of nearly 2 million people, including some Americans who say they're innocent.
For 1-hour flight, I have to spend 6 hours to go and come back.
CBS Reports explores the system, the people responsible for it, and those pushing for change.
I'm not fighting against them. I'm fighting for them to do the right thing.
The Watch List, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Don't miss true crime anytime you want, anywhere you go. With the 48 Hours podcast. Real crimes, real lives, real justice.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Listen to 48 Hours on Apple Podcasts.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
Imagine yourself in Manhattan with no police, no army, no mayor.
The people of Haiti stare down poverty, corruption, natural disasters, and violence.
90% of the guns that are used by gangs in Haiti are American guns.
But with an unbreakable spirit and eternal optimism,
There are days where I cry, but we can't be discouraged. We still believe in Haiti.
they're still able to look ahead with hope.
Haiti is on the brink of transformation, a radical shift. Nations are coming together and saying things must change.
Fighting for Haiti, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Hey there, welcome to The Uplift. I thought she was a groom, and I stepped back and I went, oh, you're the queen. She's gonna be with me every instant that I'm alive.
I just wanted to see if you'd go to Disneyland with me today.
I look over at him and he's smiling.
I'm gonna remember that the rest of my life.
They told us when he was gonna be born, he was only gonna live for 30 minutes. It's really a miracle that he's with us today.
The Uplift, stream now on the free CBS News app.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
On our places, bright, shiny faces.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my two good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings.
A CBS News investigation. People looking for love, finding their life savings gone,
This could happen to anybody.
and sometimes losing their lives. Anything for love. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Let me be clear. The Postal Service is ready to deliver the nation's mail-in ballots.
The U.S. Postal Service insisting they're ready for this coming flood of mail-in ballots, despite concerns raised by some election officials throughout the country. Many Americans, as you know, will soon be able to cast their votes, including those in Wisconsin, where absentee ballots have now been sent out to those who requested them. To discuss all of this, we've brought in head of the U.S. Election Assistance Committee, Commissioner Ben Hovland, excuse me, sir. We appreciate it. Unanimously confirmed by the Senate, a nonpartisan figure. But this is a tricky issue. I mean, usually your work, this commission's been around for about 2 decades, is low profile, but now it's as high a profile as you could ever be. So how are you navigating all of the issues out in the states, these concerns about mail-in ballots, about the security of the elections? What are you doing to assist voters and reassure people about integrity of the electoral system?
The Election Assistance Commission was set up to be what I call a customer service agency, because our state and local election officials run elections all across the country. And so we support them in any way we can. But now, 47 days out, the election is here. Ballots go out. With the military and overseas ballots, the deadline to send those out is Saturday. So ballots will be mailed out all across the country. And so at this point, we are in the election, and we continue to support the local officials who run our elections.
Give me 2 specific examples of things your commission is doing.
Well, there have been a number of things we've done. Of course, the information environment that we're in is very challenging. And we know that the best place to go for trusted source information is your state and local election official. And so we've worked on a number of toolkits and resources to help amplify those voices, your state and local officials, the people who run elections in your community, and help them to get that trusted information to you so that you know how to vote, you know how to participate. You know, at this point, again, in the cycle, it's time to get registered to vote. It's time to get your registration updated at your current address. And then it's time to make a plan to vote, to figure out if you're going to vote by mail, early in person, or on election day. And so providing resources to those local officials to get that trusted source information out to their voters.
In the wake of the 2020 election, we know many states tinkered with their voting laws to varying degrees. If you're a voter out there in the country, maybe you're in a battleground state, maybe you're not, should you be calling a certain agency nationally, your commission, somewhere in the state, to inquire about what's necessary to vote in terms of identification, if any is required, proof of residency, et cetera?
The best source for that information is your local election official. We have how elections are administered across the country varies a little by state. At the end of the day, there are those commonalities. Of course, there's federal law that has to be followed. And then the other big thing is that our elections are transparent. The people who run them are professionals, and they follow the laws of their state. But there really are differences, when early voting starts, if you have to have an excuse to vote by mail or not, and the best place to get that is from your local election official.
When you sit back in your office and you look at the map, what keeps you up at night? What worries you?
One of the great things about my job is that I get to travel all around the country. I don't even know how many states I've been to this year, but in every one of those, what I see are local election officials who have been working tirelessly to make sure that they're ready for November. And so the confidence that gives me, seeing that preparation that's gone into it, seeing the work that has gone into ensuring that Americans are able to participate, is something that gives me a lot of confidence in the process. And again, at this point in the cycle, there are things that Americans can do to help out those local election officials, and that's things like I mentioned earlier, getting your registration updated. Vote.gov is a great place to go for that, but also making that plan to vote so you know how you're going to participate.
And just quickly, finally here, are there enough election workers in this country, or are we seeing a gap in some states? At this point, there's still a few jurisdictions, or there are some jurisdictions that have needs, particularly generally your poll workers have a partisan balance. So in some places of the country, one particular party or the other is needed. There's always a need for language assistance in a number of jurisdictions. And so again, the best place to find that out is your local election official. But again, we're going to have about 1 million Americans who will, we say volunteer, but they generally get paid, who will be that frontline customer service face of our democracy. I've done it a number of times, and for anyone who's thinking about it, it's a great experience, and I would encourage them to check out helpamericavote.gov for more information on how to serve as a poll worker, and they can reach out to their local election official. There might still be a chance for this election, but certainly they can get signed up to serve in the future. Commissioner Ben Hovland, we appreciate you stopping by, part of the nonpartisan Federal Commission looking at election assistance. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
A lot going on that front, and with less than 2 weeks to go until that debate that we've been talking about, the vice presidential debate, we'll learn more about how Minnesota Governor Tim Walz is preparing for his face-off with J.D. Vance, the Ohio senator. You're streaming America Decides.
Okay, so let's just start at the beginning.
Well, let me start with this. What is at stake here?
What is the answer then?
Do you know why?
You want me to just keep going?
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Were there death threats?
How is this possible?
What's wrong with that argument?
Are you saying they lied?
Have you told the government that?
Why won't you say the word crisis? You're not answering my question.
This really
Is that scary?
Does that make sense?
What do you mean?
What does that mean in
Did
English?
any of that make sense?
What's your response?
What happened?
Why?
It's time for the CBS News Original 60 Minutes, Sunday on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
There is no more room in our city.
New York City is receiving record numbers of migrants.
Today, we're going to have more than 500 adults and children come through that door.
Tensions rise as shelters reach max capacity.
We don't have to take care of them.
CBS Reports goes inside a crisis cities and families are facing as they fight to survive.
The United States still has that glimmer of hope for people to come here.
Fighting for a future. Now streaming on the free CBS News app. An original documentary from CBS Reports.
Since you started La Soup in 2014, do you have any sense as to how much food you've rescued from the landfill?
We've rescued 4.5 million pounds.
I can't even fathom how much food that is.
And that's one little person in one little city in America. We're going to call this chicken piccata. We did 450 of these meals today.
This is the exact dish that you and I are going to have.
Yep.
Oh, really good.
Is it good?
Mm-hmm.
Having a plan of how to keep people fed should be in every single city.
If we eliminated food waste, could we eliminate
hunger? Yes.
Eating Trash, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
America Decides is your place for fact-based, unbiased reporting.
At the White House, at the Capitol, on the campaign trail. What do you say to those in your party?
Any cracks in the Republican Party?
Our reporters and our anchors travel the country talking to voters like you
about the issues that matter most.
Immigration is really a factor right now
that are going to be driving your decisions
What would you say to those who say, look, that's just democracy at work?
Listening to you and bringing your voice into our coverage.
I want a strong, proud America.
Is democracy on the ballot in 2024? Let us help you decide.
America Decides on CBS News 24/7.
Stream our expanded one-hour program Monday through Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern.
When people say who's first to get in the morning, that would be me. Morning news matters because it sets the tone for your day, and it's a way of getting you started.
Day to day, that first draft of history, it happens right here.
We're going to uplift you. We're going to send you out your way.
We take you places, we teach you new things, and we make you feel like, you know, it's not all bad.
People say to me, you always seem to be having a good time. And you know what? You're right.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7.
Welcome back to America Decides. Vice presidential nominee Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota is preparing to debate Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio. Here on CBS News, Harris campaign official tells CBS News Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg is standing in debate prep for Vance during Walz's time with his advisors. The campaign also says this is an opportunity for the Minnesota governor to express Vice President Harris's vision and share it with the country. Joining us now is Robbie Mook, who was campaign manager for Secretary Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign. Robbie, great to see you. What are your expectations looking ahead to the vice presidential debate for vice presidential candidate Governor Tim Walz?
Well, I think both of these gentlemen are very capable debaters, but I have to say J.D. Vance is very different than Donald Trump. I think you're going to hear a lot of the same falsehoods and misinformation you heard from Donald Trump, but it's going to come in better packaging. J.D. Vance relishes debates. He's very good at them. He has a good track record on this. So I expect to see a very heated debate. The question for me, which is always the challenge for anybody debating Trump or his followers, is how much can Walz get out the affirmative case he wants to make when you have so much misinformation coming at you. It can be really hard to get your own message through.
Robbie, I remember covering Secretary Clinton's campaign and coming to see you in New York, and Senator Tim Kaine was the running mate for Secretary Clinton, as we all recall. But do these vice presidential debates really matter? When you're a high-ranking Democrat working on a campaign like you did at the highest level, is this really a crucible in a presidential campaign, or is it more something on a checklist to get through in the final stretch?
Well, I think there's somewhere in between. Do I think this one debate changes the entire dynamic of the campaign? No. But at the same time, we saw a significant bump for Harris coming out of the first debate. And so I think this is likely to be much more important than other vice presidential debates that we've had in the past. And it's really, as long as Donald Trump doesn't choose to debate Harris again, this is really the last main national moment in the campaign. From then on out, it's mostly going to be rallies and get out the vote efforts. So I do think this is an important moment in the campaign.
When you look at Governor Walz, what do you believe is more important as a veteran strategist? Is it introducing himself further to the electorate, talking about his biography, the Harris-Walz stance on different issues, or is it about taking on Senator Vance? What's more important in this particular moment?
Well, whenever you're going into any debate, you have to be on offense. If you're on defense or just reacting to what the other person is putting out, you're losing. So he absolutely needs to come in with an affirmative case, not just for what he and Vice President Harris are planning to do, but also to put a sharp and critical lens to what Trump and Vance are planning to do. But as I said earlier, a major challenge for anyone debating Trump or his allies is they put out so much misinformation. You can get caught in this trap of having to fact check them constantly. And so Walz is going to have to make a lot of decisions on the fly about how much time to spend talking about the things he needs to talk about, the affirmative case he needs to make, versus correcting what I expect will be an enormous number of lies and amount of misinformation coming from J.D. Vance.
Since it's been a few years now, can you tell us, what did you give as advice to Senator Tim Kaine? He was facing off against a running mate for Donald Trump, just like Governor Walz is this time. What was your advice back then about how to handle the debate?
Well, I think J.D. Vance and Mike Pence are actually very similar. These are both very capable debaters, very smooth politicians, but also very capable of towing the line for Trump and mimicking the same lies and misrepresentations as Donald Trump. We've just seen in the last few days how J.D. Vance has refused to admit that this allegation that people were stealing people's pets and eating them, despite being told by the town manager that was false, in his own state, by the way, despite the town manager saying it was false, despite bomb threats into schools, events having to be canceled, major security situations, he has refused to admit the truth. And I think you're going to see that same thing at the debate. So Walz is going to need to be tough and hold him to account, but make sure that he spends enough time talking about what he will do for the American people too.
Robbie Mook, who knows politics as well as anybody, we really appreciate you taking the time and stopping by. Thank you.
Absolutely a pleasure. Thanks.
Last night, season 47 of the hit CBS reality show Survivor debuted. If you're a fan of America Decides, you might have recognized the first castaway voted off the island. It's John Lovett of the popular political podcast Pod Save America. He was sent home by his tribe after just 3 days, shortly after the episode aired. Lovett took to social media with his parting words, quote, "Stop the steal." Reality TV. That does it for today. We'll be back with another edition of America Decides Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern. The Daily Report with John Dickerson starts right now.
Welcome to the Daily Report for September 19th, 2024. I'm Lindsay Reiser in for John Dickerson. First, there were exploding pagers and walkie-talkies. Now there are exploding missiles from the sky. Hezbollah and Israel trade attacks. Israel